On Sunday, October 6, 2019, Project 1999 celebrated its 10-year anniversary. It's pretty crazy to think that when P99 was launched, EverQuest Live was 10 years old. Boy, does time fly. So I guess that makes it somewhat symbolic that we're now finally about to get the launch of the long-awaited and the much-anticipated Project 1999 Green server. So if you're not aware of what P99 Green is, let me briefly explain. Currently, P99 has a PvE server called Blue and a PvP server called Red. However, for the past several years, there have been rumours and speculation of a so-called Green server being in the works, with the idea being that this Green server would release with the vanilla EverQuest and follow through the classic timeline as accurately as possible. Now, this is something that Blue did not have the ability to do because of the nature of Project 1999's development. The patches that have turned P99 into what it is today have all been immaculately handcrafted by the amazing development team. Scouring the internet for patch notes from decades ago and piecing together other bits of information, they have been able to craft what is the closest we will probably ever get to a true recreation of classic EverQuest. Now, all of this hard work took a very long time. Over 10 years these guys have been chipping away at this monumental task. Now that, however, means in terms of the classic timeline, and what I mean by timeline in this sense is patches being released at the same frequency that they did between 1999 and 2001. This classic timeline for Blue had a major disparity. So if we look at the Blue timeline on the wiki, we can see the game launched in October 2009. The first major content patch is the Plane of Fear, which was supposed to be about 4 months after the launch, followed by the Plane of Hate about 3 months after that. Now, both of these were in the game on Blue server at launch. Now, this is just the start. The most significant discrepancies can be seen with the launches of the expansions. Kunark was released in March 2011, and then Velios was released in August 2015. That's almost 4.5 years of gap. Now, if you look at the classic timeline, Kunark was released on April 24th, 2000, and Velios was released on December 5th, 2000. A mere gap of 7 months. So as you can imagine, what 4 years of Kunark might do to a server's economy, let alone 10 years of Blue server as a whole. A server that's been active for 10 years has some extreme inflation in certain areas, and on the flip side, some items are so oversaturated in the market that they're worth next to nothing. This meaning that if a player were to start on Blue today, some items would be near impossible to acquire due to how wealthy the long-time players have become over time, and other items are far too easily accessible because of throwaway prices or people just flat out giving them away. Now, this all leads to what some people believe is a diluted experience for new players. Now, with all that being said, P99 Blue has finally reached the end of its patch cycle. This now allows the developers to release a Green server along with patches in their appropriate schedule within the timeline. It also acts as a fresh start for players new and old. Not everyone was around 10 years ago to experience Classic on Blue. I myself started in 2013. Kunark was already out at this time. So what can we actually expect out of a Green server? So I'll just skim over the announcement post from the forums here. P99 Green is to be released on October 25th, 2019, early afternoon Eastern Standard Time. P99 Green is a new PvE server without any patches or expansions enabled upon release. Old style mechanics and drops will be enabled, including legacy items such as the Guise of the Deceiver and the Mana Stone. The server will then progress through all the patches on the same timeline as EverQuest's original launch, all the way up until the very last patch in Velios. This means that based on an October 2019 launch date, the following are a few major timeline changes. So in January 2020, Plane of Fear. April 2020, Plane of Hate. Around May 2020, we'll get the Temple of Sol Ro. This is also where a lot of the legacy items such as the Mana Stone and the Guise of the Deceiver will cease to drop. In August of 2020, we will get the Plane of Sky. November 2020 will be the release of the Ruins of Kunark. Around April 2021 will be the release of Epic Weapons. July 2021, we'll get Scars of Velios. Now, this list does not include every single update patch that will roll out along the way. It's just designed to give you an idea of how that server will shape and progress as time goes on. Eventually, the Green server will merge into the current Blue server, and at that time, the theory is it will then start over again from scratch. That merge will not happen until at least 6 months after the last patch in Velios is released. They go on to say that is no earlier than January of 2023. So also in regards to the blue server, that will always remain open and remain at its current point in the timeline, with a possibility of some custom content being added to keep things interesting and in a classically inspired style. What that exactly means, no one knows. Now, one of the major concerns about a green server has always been how will pre-nerfed items and camps be handled. Everyone who plays blue in the current day knows the value of all of these items and what the worth of those items can evolve into over time. Many people are concerned that camps will be locked down by specific groups of players, making it hard, if not impossible, for the average person to get their hands on, say, a Guise or a Mana Stone. Now, the dev team has done their best to address this, and they've written the following. We would like players to have their fair shot at obtaining limited time items, and to that end we are devising a system for a server kept list of players in line to loot said item. Upon entering a zone or a camp area, you will be able to enter a command to add yourself to the list for this item. While your name is on that list, you must remain in the zone or the camp vicinity until your name reaches the top. You will have a limited time to re-enter the zone or area in case of a disconnection. Once your name is up and the item drops, you will automatically be granted exclusive permission to loot that item from the corpse. We hope that this system will prevent the practicing of passing camps and or items to friends, corpsing additional items, and so on. We believe that this should closely mimic how the majority of camps were handled in classic EverQuest, and it is the best solution to mechanically enforce it. More details about this system will be announced prior to the launch. Now, how this will actually play out in practice is anyone's guess, but the good thing is here at least the devs have addressed it and it is something that they will be monitoring. Apart from that, the rest of the thread does go on to say pretty standard stuff. The current raid rules are still yet to be determined. There will be the standard play nice policy. Boxing will, as usual, not be allowed. However, just like P99 Blue and P99 Red, you can actually play one character on each server at the same time, which means if you have a character on blue, you can play that and then alt-tab out to a character on green. Doesn't matter, it's not against the rules. Now, one final thing that is interesting to note here is in regards to character names. So they have gone on to say, you will not be able to create a character on green with the same name as a character on blue, unless you are on the same account that owns that character on blue. We may also bring the server up early to allow character creations ahead of time. We will try to announce this with as much time in advance. So there are some other differences that if you have played blue might not seem so apparent at first. One of my favourite changes right off the bat is the old character selection and character creation screen. It's absolutely beautiful and I'm so happy that it's been finally implemented into P99. A huge shout out to Secrets for all the hard work that he's put into this project over the years. The developers have also had an entire team dedicated to creating a classic era UI. Now, this UI will be enforced and custom UIs will no longer be supported, at least initially or until some clever players figure out a way around this. Features of this classic UI include things such as only 6 hot buttons available at any given time. Additional on-screen hotbars are actually disabled, meaning that if you want to use different hotbars, you will need to scroll through the 10 available on hotbar 1. Another pretty significant change that did cause a lot of drama when it was initially implemented is no pet window. The pet window has been disabled, as this is not a classic feature. Instead, you will now have to manage your pet manually by using pet commands. You will need to either target your pet or use the pet health command to see its remaining health. Now, one thing that did always frustrate me about the classic UI is the fact that you cannot see your mana pool in any sort of numerical value. All you can see is the mana bar, and that doesn't even give you a percentage, unlike hit points, which does show you both a numerical value and also the bar. Now, meditation is back. Unlike in the viewport days, you aren't forced to sit there and have your entire screen taken up by the spellbook to meditate, but you will indeed need to have the spellbook open with the meditate button pressed in order to regain your mana most efficiently, at least until later levels in the game, where I do believe you can meditate just by sitting regardless of your spellbook. The spellbook itself has been beautifully recreated with the original marble style, along with the hotbars and the buttons within the UI. I do believe the UI team are still working on certain features, and I am excited to see what they come up with in the future. There is a very interesting thread that's available to read on the forums, and it goes through some of the process involved with the creation of this UI and the troubles that come along with making things for Classic. I found it a very fascinating read. On to another thing that a lot of people may not have expected: night blindness. With the Chardock patch that did drop a few months ago on Blue, the dev team implemented a much more classic skybox, and they also have been playing around with the advanced lighting feature in the Titanium client. Now, I personally am not a fan of advanced lighting on Blue, and I do prefer to play with it turned off. Now, that being said, since I've been testing the green beta server, the dev team seems to have put a lot of work into recreating the night blind effect that humans and other races without any form of night vision would encounter. This truly is amazing stuff. This is the most accurate experience that I have had playing in a night blind scenario since 2001. Gamma seems to be locked, at least for me in windowed mode. Some of my friends have reported still being able to adjust their gamma. I know I can manually adjust my gamma through my graphics card or if I'm in full screen mode, but even if I do pump my gamma right up, it's not an instant fix like it used to be. The way that the advanced lighting system works is very interesting. Now, I vividly remember running around West Corana at night in the rain and not being able to see a meter in front of my own face. I remember using Flame Bolt on my mage and shooting it off into the distance because it would cause a trail of light, and as it went, it would sometimes help me get a rough idea of where I was. I remember running straight into packs of bandits, scarecrows, and then only seeing them when I was right next to their face. All of this has currently been recreated on the green beta server. I've been running around on a human mage, and sometimes I cannot tell if I'm playing EverQuest or if I'm playing Silent Hill. Now, a lot of people really don't like this feature, and I get it. Over time, I am sure the novelty will wear off. But if you have not experienced this before, I encourage you, please go make a human, a barbarian, an erudite, whatever. Go rolling through West Corana at night. If you want to play true MLG hardcore mode, you can even turn off the NPC name tags. Trust me, it'll be like nothing you've ever done in EverQuest before. Anyway, moving on, another change, cycling through targets with tab will be disabled. This one doesn't really affect me that much personally, but I do know a lot of people have strong opinions about it. The frame rate is now hard set to 60 frames per second. So there was a lot of stuff in the game that you could really abuse very easily by changing your frame rate. Movement through the air is very much tied to the frame rate in P99. So if you had your frame rate at 120, you could actually move through the air slower than if it had been, say, at 30 frames per second. This meant you could do stuff like safely floating down into the hole without dying by maxing your frames per second, or you were able to make certain jumps that you could not otherwise make in TOV, for example, because if you lowered your frame rate, you would move a further distance forward when you jump. Hard capping the frame rate basically remedies all of these problems in one go, and I do understand why it was done, although I personally did enjoy using a lot of these tricks to my own benefit. However, they were most definitely not intended mechanics. Alright, let's see another change here. It was recently discovered through patch notes and error-appropriate forums that AoE spells and songs were capped at hitting a maximum of 4 targets. This is until around September of 1999, so this will actually also be implemented on green. This means that there will be no Bard swarm kiting on green until probably 6 months after the launch of that server. Some other little bits of interesting information I found from my brief time playing on the beta. While you're casting, if you duck, the spell will not cancel instantly like it does on blue. It will continue to cast, and then if you have remained ducking, it will fail at the end of the cast. If you duck mid-cast and then stand up again, it actually does seem to finish the cast uninterrupted. I have no idea if this is just a bug in the beta or if it's an intended change. It seems like a pretty significant change if that is the case, especially in terms of complete heal chains for raids and the like, so pretty interesting stuff there. So I mean, what do you guys think about green? Are you excited to experience vanilla EQ again? Is the server going to be just a clusterfuck of permacamps? Will it destroy the population of blue? Are you ready to put up with class XP penalties again? For me personally, it's a bit up in the air. I was very much looking forward to a green server for what felt like years, but now that it is finally launching, the timing for me is just, it's not great. So I am working full time again right now, and November through January is always a very busy time of the year for me. Also, with the launch of Classic World of Warcraft this past August, a lot of my real life friends have been playing that. It's very refreshing to be able to play a retro MMO with people in your own time zone. A lot of the time, people who watch me here do forget that the majority of the time I spend in P99 is when 90% of the server is asleep. It can get very frustrating. With that said, I will play green. I am very much thinking of potentially making a human monk and playing through the Queenos route, although initially I wanted to play a druid or a chamois and then make a monk once Kunark dropped, and obviously it would be Ixar once again. But to be honest, I don't really have any solid plans. I pretty much just play what I feel like at the time, but I think that's the best way to kind of have fun. So nothing solid yet, but it will happen. Now, some people have asked what I've been doing in regards to EverQuest, like if I'd quit. I know I've been very inactive or very sporadic, I guess. So to give people a picture of what I have been up to over the last few years, I played from around November 2017 to around October 2018. And that was pretty solid without any significant breaks. In that time, I made a video or two, I streamed a bunch, but that was basically where I got 60, got my epic, all that sort of stuff. Fun times. Then in around October last year, I did have a unique opportunity where my real life schedule aligned with being able to do endgame raiding on P99. So I want to say between October 2018 and around April 2019, I put all of my energy and time into endgame raiding, and I loved every second of it. I experienced parts of the game that I had never seen and I thought I would never see. With the exception of, say, Vishen's Peak, I believe I have now killed almost every raid target that is in this game. Some of my highlights would include getting all of the significant pieces of my Sky Shrine set, being part of a pull team, coordinating Dragon Pulls in Temple of Vishen. I got keyed for Sleeper's Tomb. I've done an entire ST clear. I have my own primal weapon. That was a pretty major milestone for me. Very exciting. I learned the ins and outs of Planar Sky. There's a lot more stuff there, but I guess the biggest thing is that I made friends with some of the most wonderful and amazingly talented people along the way. So in regards to Reptox and the Blue server, nothing's going to change for me. Like I stated previously, I'm never truly going to quit with Reptox. Not until that server, I guess, ceases to exist, I suppose. I have terabytes upon terabytes of unused footage from raids and other old adventures. I've got partially made videos. All this stuff has been piling up over literally years. It's very much a matter of finding the time and the passion to work on that stuff to get full content releases, but it is there nonetheless. Despite all of that, I am extremely happy that Green is launching, and I am excited to see what the future holds in store for Project 1999 as a whole. Feel free to follow me on Twitch. You might catch me streaming sometime over there. If not, I am sure there will be some adventure style videos for Green, just like there were with Reptox all those years ago back on Blue. What those new adventures hold in store for us, we won't know until we get there, but until that time comes, you should 100% take the opportunity to play on Green at launch. If you've been watching my stuff and you've always wanted to try EverQuest, now is the perfect time to jump in and give it a go. That's all I got for now, guys. Hit me up with questions in the comments below. And until next time, take care.